I found my 8-year-old daughter Emma locked alone in our sweltering Florida hotel room without food, water, or air conditioning, while my parents and sister took their other grandchildren on a luxury boat tour. Emma was severely dehydrated and terrified. When confronted, they casually dismissed it. There wasn't enough space on the boat. This shocking betrayal from my own family awakened something primal in me. I didn't scream or cry. Instead, I formulated a plan that would permanently change our family dynamic. The whole disaster started 2 years ago, when I began saving every extra penny from my administrative assistant job for this family vacation. As a single mother, I wanted to give Emma the experience of a lifetime in the Florida Keys with her grandparents and cousins. My parents, Thomas and Margaret Wilson, had always been well off thanks to my father's successful insurance business, and my sister Abigail had married into even more wealth. Their 3 children, Jackson, 12, Addison, 10, and Taylor, 6, always seemed to receive preferential treatment, but I convinced myself it was my imagination. Growing up in our upper, middle, class Atlanta neighborhood, there had always been an unspoken hierarchy. Abigail, 4 years my senior, was the golden child homecoming queen, straight, a student, and eventually corporate lawyer. I was the creative one, which was their polite way of saying I wasn't living up to the Wilson family potential. "Are you excited to see your cousins, sweetie?" I asked Emma as we packed our suitcases the night before our flight. Her curly blonde hair bounced as she nodded enthusiastically. "Do you think Grandpa will take us fishing like he promised?" Emma asked, carefully folding her favorite sundress. "I'm sure he will," I replied, feeling a twinge of uncertainty. My father had taken Jackson fishing countless times, but had never once offered to take Emma. When we arrived at the Palm Breeze Resort, my parents greeted us in the lobby. My mother gave Emma a brief pat on the head before gushing over the designer luggage Abigail's family had brought. "Kelly, you're in room 312, my father said, handing me a key card. We upgraded everyone else to oceanfront suites, but they were fully booked by the time you confirmed. I swallowed my disappointment. I had confirmed our attendance the very day they announced the vacation. "That's fine," I said, forcing a smile. "We're just happy to be here." The first day went relatively smoothly. We spent time at the pool, though I noticed how my mother constantly praised Abigail's children for their swimming skills while barely acknowledging Emma's recent completion of advanced lessons. That night, I developed a splitting migraine, likely from the combination of travel stress and the tropical heat. I took my prescription medication, knowing it would knock me out for several hours. "Mom, are you okay?" Emma asked, her blue eyes wide with concern. "Just a headache, sweetie. I need to sleep it off. We have a big day tomorrow with everyone." I awoke disoriented at 11:30 in the morning, the medication having knocked me out completely. Sunlight streamed through the curtains I'd forgotten to close. Emma wasn't in the other bed. Panic rose in my throat until I spotted a note on the bedside table in my mother's elegant handwriting. "Took everyone boating. Back later." Relief washed over me. They had taken Emma along while I slept. How considerate. I took a quick shower, threw on a sundress, and decided to order room service since I'd missed the complimentary breakfast. That's when I heard a faint knocking from somewhere nearby. I paused, listening. It came again, more persistent. Following the sound into the hallway, I realized with dawning horror that it was coming from inside our hotel room. I pressed my ear to the door. "Mommy, is that you? Please let me out." Emma's voice was raspy and frightened. "Emma? Honey, I'm here. What are you doing in there? I thought you went boating." "They wouldn't take me. They locked the door from the outside." My hands trembled as I fumbled with the key card. When the door swung open, the heat hit me first stifling, oppressive. The air conditioning was off. Emma sat on the floor by the door, her face flushed and tear-stained. "Baby, what happened?" I gathered her into my arms, feeling how hot her skin was. "Grandma said I had to stay here because there wasn't enough room on the boat," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Aunt Abigail said their kids had been looking forward to it longer. They took all the water from the mini fridge." I carried Emma to the bathroom, helping her drink small sips of tap water. Her lips were cracked, her skin hot to the touch. According to the thermostat, the room was 90, 2 degrees. As Emma gradually rehydrated, more details emerged. They had left around 7:30 in the morning, over 4 hours ago. They had told Emma I knew about the arrangement. Worst of all, my father had actually turned the deadbolt from the outside using some tool to prevent her from leaving. Grandpa said I wasn't good enough to go, Emma whispered, breaking my heart into 1,000 pieces. As I held my daughter, my phone dinged with a notification. My sister had posted on social media. With shaking hands, I opened the app to see photos of my parents, sister, brother, in-law, and all 3 of my nieces and nephews smiling on a gleaming white yacht. The caption read, "Perfect family day on the water. Blessed family first." In the background of one photo, I could see that the yacht had at least 4 empty seats. I was still comforting Emma when my phone rang. It was my mother. "We're back from the boat tour. We're all going to lunch at the seafood place by the marina. Meet us there in 20 minutes. Before I could respond, she hung up. I looked at Emma, who shrank back, clearly afraid of seeing them again. "We need to get you checked out first," I said, gathering our things. "Then we'll deal with them." I called the front desk and asked for the nearest urgent care. The receptionist, hearing the urgency in my voice, immediately provided directions to a clinic just 5 minutes from the resort. At Palm Keys Urgent Care, a doctor named Dr. Watkins examined Emma thoroughly. Her diagnosis confirmed my fears: moderate dehydration and heat exhaustion. "She's lucky you found her when you did," Dr. Watkins said as a nurse started an IV to rehydrate Emma. "In this heat, locked in a room without water. It could have been much worse. May I ask how this happened?" I hesitated, shame washing over me. My family. They left her locked in the hotel room while they went boating. Dr. Watkins' expression hardened. "Deliberately left a child locked alone without provisions?" I nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "Miss Wilson, I'm required by law to report suspected child endangerment. Please," I whispered. "Let me handle this first. They're my parents and sister. There must be some explanation." Dr. Watkins reluctantly agreed to hold off on reporting, but gave me her card. "If anything like this happens again, I will report it immediately. And I strongly suggest you consider doing so yourself." As Emma rested with her 4, I stepped outside to call my mother. No answer. I texted my father, sister, and brother-in-law. Nothing. Finally, I called the restaurant they'd mentioned. The hostess confirmed they were still dining. "Emma, sweetie," I said, returning to her side. "The doctor says you need to rest for a few hours. I'm going to go talk to Grandma and Grandpa, and I'll be right back." Her eyes widened with fear. "Don't leave me alone again, please." "You won't be alone," I assured her, gesturing to the kind nurse who had been attending to her. "I promise I'll be back very soon." With a final kiss on her forehead, I left for the restaurant, a cold rage building inside me. I spotted them immediately on the outdoor deck, laughing and drinking wine as if nothing was wrong. My mother was showing something on her tablet to everyone at the table. "Well, look who finally woke up," my sister Abigail smirked as I approached. "Nice of you to join the land of the living." "Where's Emma?" my mother asked, glancing behind me. "At urgent care," I said quietly, not wanting to cause a scene. "Being treated for dehydration and heat exhaustion after being locked in a hotel room for over 4 hours without food or water." A brief silence fell over the table. "Don't be so dramatic, Kelly," my father finally said. "The room had a bathroom with tap water. She's 8 years old. She was terrified. You turned off the air conditioning in 90-degree weather." My mother sighed dramatically. "We needed to conserve energy while no one was in the room. How were we supposed to know you wouldn't wake up?" "You locked her in from the outside," I said, my voice shaking. "Dad used some tool to secure the deadbolt so she couldn't get out even if she tried." My father shrugged. "Hotel rooms aren't childproof. It was for her safety." "We simply didn't have enough space on the boat," Abigail interjected. "It was only a 6-person charter." I saw the photos. There were plenty of empty seats. "Well," my sister said with a thin smile, "Emma can be so difficult sometimes. My children have been looking forward to this trip for months, and they behave properly in public." I stood there, stunned by their casual cruelty. "Where is she now?" my mother asked, having the decency to look slightly concerned. "Like I said, at urgent care. Getting IV fluids, because she was severely dehydrated after being abandoned by her family." "You're overreacting as usual," my father said, signaling for the check. "This is why you've always struggled, Kelly. Everything is a drama with you." As he reached for his wallet, I noticed my mother's tablet still on the table. Something on the screen caught my eye. An email confirmation with the subject line, 6. Person luxury yacht charter, confirmation. I casually picked up the tablet, pretending to admire the photos they'd taken. "Mom, can I see the boat pictures?" She nodded absently while continuing her conversation with my brother, in-law Jeff. Swiping through the photos, I discreetly navigated to her email. The yacht reservation had been made 3 weeks ago, well after our vacation had been planned for 7 people. They had deliberately booked an excursion that wouldn't accommodate everyone, knowing from the start that someone would be excluded, and that someone was always going to be Emma. As I scrolled further, I found an email thread between my mother and sister from the day before. "What about Kelly and the girl?" my mother had written. "Kelly will probably sleep late with those pills she takes," Abigail had replied. "We can leave the girl behind. Kelly will never know, and if she finds out, she'll get over it like she always does." My hands began to shake so badly I had to set the tablet down. This hadn't been a last-minute decision or an oversight. They had planned to exclude my daughter all along, deliberately, and with malice. I looked up at my family, these people who shared my blood but apparently none of my humanity, and made a decision that would change everything. "Emma and I won't be joining you for the rest of today," I said calmly, standing up. "She needs to rest." "Drama queen," my sister muttered. I walked away, my mind racing. This wasn't just about today's incident. This was about a pattern one I'd been blind to for far too long. I returned to the urgent care to find Emma sleeping peacefully, some color restored to her cheeks. The nurse informed me that she was responding well to the treatment. "She can leave in about an hour," she said. "Just make sure she continues to drink plenty of fluids and stays cool." "Thank you," I replied, sitting beside my daughter and gently stroking her hair. As Emma slept, I pulled out my phone and began making notes of everything that had happened, including screenshots of my sister's social media posts and detailed descriptions of what Emma had told me. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with this information yet, but documenting it felt right. When Emma awoke, her first words broke my heart all over again. "Am I in trouble, Mommy?" "No, baby. Why would you think that?" "Because Grandma said I was being punished for being difficult." I took a deep breath, struggling to control my emotions. "Emma, listen to me. You did absolutely nothing wrong. What happened today was not your fault, and it was not a punishment. Then why didn't they want me on the boat?" "Because sometimes adults do very wrong things. But I promise you, I'm going to make sure nothing like this ever happens to you again." After Emma was discharged, we returned to the hotel. Instead of going back to our room, I approached the front desk and requested to speak with the manager. A tall man with kind eyes introduced himself as Tyler Harrington, the hotel's security manager. "How can I help you?" he asked. I explained what had happened to Emma, watching as his expression grew increasingly concerned. "Miss Wilson, this is extremely serious. Child endangerment occurred on our property." "I know," I said quietly. "That's why I'm here. I need to know if your security cameras might have recorded anything." Tyler nodded. "We have cameras in all hallways and public areas. Let me check the footage from this morning." In his office, Tyler pulled up the security feed. We watched as my parents, sister, brother, in-law, and their 3 children exited their rooms around 7:15 that morning. They stopped at my door, and my father knocked. Emma answered, still in her pajamas. There was no audio, but it was clear that they were telling her something. Emma's body language changed from excited to dejected. Then, most damning of all, we watched as my father physically guided Emma back into the room. He pulled something from his pocket, a small tool of some kind, and used it on the outside of the door. "He's disabling the safety feature that prevents the deadbolt from being locked from the outside," Tyler explained, his voice tight with anger. "That's not only against hotel policy, but potentially illegal when used to confine someone. The footage continued, showing my family laughing as they walked away, leaving my daughter imprisoned in the room. "I can provide you with a copy of this footage," Tyler offered. "And I strongly recommend you report this to the authorities." "I need time to think," I said. "In the meantime, is there any way Emma and I could move to a different room? I don't want my family to have access." "Absolutely. I can move you to a secure floor and flag your account so that no one else can get information about your room." As Tyler arranged our room change, I checked my phone to find several missed calls from my mother. I texted her simply, "Emma is resting. We'll see you tomorrow." That would buy us time. In our new room, which Tyler had generously upgraded to a suite, Emma finally relaxed enough to tell me more about what had happened. "Grandpa said I should stay in the room and be a good girl," she recounted. "When I asked why I couldn't come, Aunt Abigail said there wasn't enough space for everyone, and since I was the youngest cousin, I had to stay behind." "But Taylor is younger than you," I pointed out. Emma nodded. "I said that too, but Grandma said Taylor behaves better than me." Each word was like a knife in my heart. "Did they say anything about me?" I asked gently. Emma hesitated, then nodded. "Aunt Abigail told me not to wake you up because you needed a break from dealing with me." I pulled her into a tight hug, fighting back tears. "Emma, that is absolutely not true. Being your mom is the greatest joy of my life, and I never, ever need a break from you." That night, after Emma fell asleep, I sat on the balcony of our new suite and made a decision. We would remain on this vacation, but things were going to change dramatically. I would pretend to forgive my family while documenting everything and planning my response. As I was about to turn in, my phone dinged with an email notification. It was from my daughter's school, confirming a meeting I'd supposedly requested about ongoing behavioral concerns. Confused, I called the school's after-hours line and left a message for Emma's teacher, Mrs. Bryant, asking for clarification. She called back almost immediately. "Kelly, I'm sorry to bother you on vacation, but when I saw your message, I thought it might be urgent." "I'm confused about this meeting request," I said. "I never scheduled anything." There was an uncomfortable pause. "Well, your parents did. They've been in contact with the school several times this year, expressing concerns about Emma's home environment." "What?" I gasped. "What exactly have they been saying?" Mrs. Bryant sounded uncomfortable. "They've suggested that as a single mother, you might be struggling to provide adequate supervision and structure. They mentioned wanting to take a more active role in Emma's upbringing, possibly including temporary custody arrangements during what they called your difficult periods." The room seemed to spin around me. My own parents had been going behind my back, undermining me to my daughter's school, and apparently laying groundwork for some kind of custody interference. "Kelly, for what it's worth," Mrs. Bryant continued, "I've never observed any issues that would support their concerns. Emma is a delightful, well-adjusted child, and you've always been an attentive mother." After thanking her and ending the call, I sat in stunned silence. This wasn't just about today's incident, or even casual favoritism. My family was actively trying to build a case against me as a mother. The next morning, I received a text from Tyler asking to meet me privately. When Emma and I went down to breakfast, I asked the restaurant staff if they could seat Emma where I could see her, while I stepped away for a brief meeting. "I found something else you should see," Tyler said when I met him in his office. He played another security recording, this one from 2 days earlier when we had first checked in. The footage showed my parents and sister in deep conversation in the hotel lobby. Though there was no sound, it was clear they were discussing something serious. Then my father pointed to his watch and made a gesture like someone sleeping. "I think they were already planning to exclude your daughter from activities while you were asleep or otherwise occupied," Tyler said grimly. "Thank you for showing me this," I said. "I need to ask you something else. If I decide to take action against my family, would you be willing to provide these recordings as evidence?" "Absolutely," Tyler replied without hesitation. "What they did was wrong on every level." As I turned to leave, Tyler gently touched my arm. "Kelly, I know this is none of my business, but as someone who grew up with Similar family dynamics. Don't underestimate what people like this might do when confronted. Be careful. His concern touched me deeply. For the first time since discovering Emma locked in that hotel room, I felt like someone was truly on my side. Over the next 2 days, I maintained a careful facade of normalcy. I told my family that Emma had recovered, and that while I was upset about what happened, I understood it was a misunderstanding. They readily accepted this explanation, clearly relieved they wouldn't face any consequences. "That's the Kelly we know and love," my father said patronizingly, always able to see reason. Beneath this calm exterior, I was investigating everything. Each night after Emma fell asleep, I pieced together a disturbing pattern of manipulation and exclusion that went back years. I created a photo timeline, reviewing family gatherings and holidays. In nearly every photo, Emma was either absent or positioned at the edge of the frame, while Abigail's children took center stage. For her last birthday, my parents had given Emma a simple coloring book, while Jackson received a gaming console, Addison a tablet, and even little Taylor got a premium dollhouse worth hundreds of dollars. I found emails between my parents and various family friends where they referred to Emma as Kelly's unfortunate situation rather than their grandchild. In one particularly painful exchange, my mother wrote to her sister, "Of course we love the girl, but she's a constant reminder of Kelly's poor choices." The poor choice she referred to was my brief marriage to Emma's father, Scott, who had left when I was 3 months pregnant. My parents had never approved of him and seemed to transfer their disapproval to my innocent daughter. Most disturbing of all, I discovered through careful conversation with Emma that my parents had been telling her things like, "Your mommy gets very tired of taking care of you sometimes," and, "If you were better behaved, maybe your daddy would have stayed." These revelations awakened painful memories from my own childhood. I remembered being 10 years old and overhearing my mother tell a friend, "Abigail is destined for greatness, but Kelly, we just hope she finds someone to take care of her." I recalled my 16th birthday, when my father gave Abigail the car that had been promised to me because she has more important places to be. The pattern was clear. I had always been the less valued daughter, and now my child was the less valued grandchild. On the 3rd night of our vacation, I met Tyler for coffee after Emma was asleep. The hotel provided a trusted staff member to sit in our suite while I was gone. "I've been gathering evidence," I told him, showing him the timeline I'd created. Tyler reviewed it thoughtfully. "This is extensive. What do you plan to do with it?" "I'm not sure yet. Part of me wants to confront them directly, but I'm worried about how that might affect Emma." "From my experience," Tyler said carefully, "people who've behaved this way for so long rarely change when simply confronted. They're more likely to deny everything and paint you as the problem." His words resonated with a lifetime of experience. "There's something else," I admitted. "I'm starting to think they've been interfering with my life in other ways." I explained how several promising job opportunities had mysteriously fallen through after reference checks, and how my application for an apartment in a better school district had been rejected despite my excellent credit. "Have your parents ever been involved with your employment or housing?" Tyler asked. The question triggered a memory. 2 years ago, my father had offered to provide a glowing reference to a potential employer. I'd gotten to the final round but was ultimately rejected for being not quite the right fit. "I need to make some calls," I said. The next morning, while my family was at breakfast, I called that company's HR department, claiming to be updating my references for a new position. The representative pulled up my file. "Yes, we have Thomas Wilson listed as your reference from that application. Would you like to know what he said?" "If that's possible, yes. Normally we wouldn't share this, but since he's listed as a personal reference rather than a professional one, he actually recommended against hiring you. He stated that you had reliability issues related to single parenthood and suggested you were seeking the position primarily for the health insurance due to, quote, ongoing mental health challenges." I thanked her and hung up, feeling physically ill. My own father had deliberately sabotaged my career opportunity, one that would have significantly improved life for Emma and me. That afternoon, while everyone was at the pool, I borrowed my mother's tablet again, claiming I wanted to show Emma some family photos. Instead, I searched through her emails, finding correspondence with my previous landlord, where she had warned them about my unstable lifestyle and frequent male visitors, both complete fabrications. I also discovered emails between my parents discussing their financial support of me. To my shock, I found that the monthly deposits my father made into my account, which he had always called just a little help for Emma, were being carefully documented as loans, with supposed repayment terms I'd never agreed to, or even known about. Most shocking of all was an email thread between my mother and sister from just 3 months ago. "The trust fund issue is concerning," my mother wrote. "If Kelly ever discovers that your father set aside equal amounts for both of you, she might demand her portion." "Don't worry," Abigail replied. "Dad transferred most of her share to my children's accounts years ago. The paperwork shows she received small distributions for education and welfare, though of course she never saw that money." I had a trust fund? My hands shook as I read further, learning that my father had established equal trusts for both Abigail and me when his insurance business took off. According to these emails, mine should have been worth over $300,000 money that could have changed Emma's life and mine. Instead, most of it had been diverted to Abigail's children without my knowledge or consent. That night, I couldn't sleep. The magnitude of my family's betrayal was overwhelming. They hadn't just played favorites or been occasionally thoughtless. They had systematically undermined my independence, financial security, and even my relationship with my daughter. When my phone rang at nearly midnight, I was still wide awake. It was Tyler. "I hope I'm not calling too late," he said. "But I found something you need to see right away." "What is it?" "Security footage from this evening. Your parents entered your old room, the one you were in before we moved you. They spent almost 30 minutes there. I'll be right down." Making sure Emma was sound asleep, I asked the night manager to keep an eye on my room and hurried to meet Tyler. The footage clearly showed my parents using a staff key to enter what had been our room. "How did they get access?" I asked. Tyler looked grim. They told the front desk clerk they needed to retrieve their daughter's medication. "Since the room was still registered under your name, and they claimed it was an emergency. Can we see what they did inside?" "No cameras in the rooms, but we can go check now. The room is still unoccupied." Together, we entered my old room. Nothing seemed immediately disturbed until Tyler pointed to the bedside table. "The drawers have been searched. See how the hotel stationery is disarranged?" We checked the bathroom next, finding nothing unusual until Tyler noticed something on the counter. "Were these yours?" he asked, pointing to 2 prescription bottles. I shook my head. "I keep my migraine medication in my toiletry bag." Tyler carefully picked up the bottles using a tissue. One was labeled as a strong antidepressant, the other as an anti-anxiety medication. Both had my name on them, but had been prescribed by a doctor I'd never heard of. "They're planting medication," I whispered, the implications hitting me like a physical blow. "They're creating evidence that I'm unstable." Tyler's expression was grave. This just became much more serious. "Kelly, I think they're building a case to take Emma away from you." The next morning, I woke to a text from my sister. "Family meeting at 9 in Mom and Dad's suite. Important vacation plans to discuss." I dressed Emma in her favorite sundress, plastered on a fake smile, and headed to my parents' oceanfront suite, my mind racing with everything I'd discovered. My father opened the door with a broad smile that didn't reach his eyes. "There's our girls. Come in, come in. We've got exciting news." The suite was luxurious, at least twice the size of even our upgraded room. Everyone else was already there, the adults sipping mimosas while the children played with new toys on the balcony. "We've arranged something special," my mother announced once we were seated. "A private dolphin encounter tour tomorrow." "That sounds wonderful," I said, matching her enthusiasm. Emma loves dolphins. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. My sister cleared her throat. "Actually, Kelly, we thought you might enjoy some alone time. You know, to relax. You've seemed so tense lately." I felt Emma stiffen beside me. "And Emma?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "The children will be with us, of course," my mother said smoothly. "It will be a wonderful grandparent experience." "All the children?" I pressed. My father waved his hand dismissively. "The dolphin encounter has an age restriction. Emma is just a bit too young." "That's strange," I said, pulling out my phone. Because I just checked their website, and they accept children as young as 4. Another uncomfortable silence. Well, there are other considerations, my sister interjected. Temperament, behavior. What exactly are you implying about my daughter's behavior? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. Abigail exchanged glances with my parents. Kelly, we all know Emma can be difficult. Remember last Christmas when she had that meltdown? You mean when she got upset because you told your kids not to share their new toys with her? When Jackson pushed her and no one said a word? This is exactly what we're talking about, my father said, his voice hardening. You're too defensive about her. You can't see her behavior objectively because of your issues. My issues? My mother reached out to pat my hand condescendingly. Darling, we know you've been struggling. The stress of single motherhood, your financial difficulties. It's nothing to be ashamed of. But it does affect Emma, Abigail added. Children need stability. I looked at each of their faces, these people who shared my blood, but had been undermining me for years, and something inside me finally snapped. Emma, sweetie, I said calmly, could you please go play with your cousins on the balcony for a few minutes? The adults need to talk. Once she was out of earshot, I turned back to my family. Let's stop pretending, I said quietly. This isn't about Emma's behavior or my parenting. This is about the fact that you've never accepted her as your grandchild because you didn't approve of her father. That's ridiculous, my father sputtered. We've been nothing but generous. Generous? I cut him off. Like when you sabotaged my job opportunity by telling them I was mentally unstable? Or when you diverted my trust fund to Abigail's kids without my knowledge? The blood drained from my father's face. Or perhaps you mean generous like planting prescription medications in my hotel room to build a case against me? My mother gasped. How dare you make such accusations? I have proof, I said simply. Of everything. The security footage of you locking Emma in a hotel room. Your emails about excluding her from the boat trip. Dad's reference to my potential employer. The trust fund diversions. And your little medication planting scheme from last night. Abigail recovered first. Kelly, you're not well. You're paranoid and seeing conspiracies everywhere. This is exactly why we're concerned about Emma. Is that your legal opinion, counselor? I asked coldly. Because conspiracy requires secrecy, and I have documentation of everything. My father leaned forward, his businessman persona taking over. What exactly do you want, Kelly? Money? Is that it? Because if you're threatening us, I'm not threatening anyone. I'm simply stating facts. You've been trying to undermine me for years, and now you're actively attempting to take my daughter away. It stops now. We only want what's best for Emma, my mother insisted, tears welling in her eyes. Sometimes a mother can't see clearly when she's struggling. The only thing I'm struggling with is the realization that my own family has been plotting against me and psychologically abusing my child. Abigail snorted. Psychological abuse? Don't be so dramatic. At that moment, Emma came running in from the balcony, tears streaming down her face. Mommy, Jackson said something really mean. What did he say, sweetie? I asked, pulling her onto my lap. Emma glanced fearfully at her grandparents. He said, you don't really want me, and that's why Grandma and Grandpa are going to take me to live with them soon. The room went deathly silent. What else have you been telling my daughter? I asked, my voice shaking with rage. Children misunderstand things, my mother said weakly. Emma turned to her, tears still flowing. But Grandma, you told me yesterday that Mommy might have to go away for a while to get better, and you and Grandpa would take care of me. My father stood abruptly. This conversation is over. Kelly, you're clearly working yourself up over misunderstandings and fabrications. We're trying to help you, but if you can't see that, the only thing I see, I interrupted, is that you've been lying to my 8-year-old daughter about being taken away from her mother. Do you have any idea how traumatizing that is for a child? We would never traumatize Emma, Abigail insisted. Unlike you, who's creating this dramatic scene in front of her. I stood, lifting Emma into my arms. We're done here. Emma and I won't be joining any of your excursions for the remainder of this trip. As I turned to leave, my father called after me. Kelly, if you walk out that door, you'll regret it. Think about your financial situation. Think about how a judge might view your erratic behavior if we were forced to seek temporary custody for Emma's well-being. I paused at the door, looking back at the people I'd spent a lifetime trying to please. No, Dad. If you pursue this any further, you'll be the ones with regrets. Back in our room, Emma broke down completely. Are they going to take me away from you? She sobbed. I held her tightly. No, baby. Never. I promise you. But Grandpa said they have papers already. Ice filled my veins. What papers, Emma? I heard them talking. Grandpa said the papers are ready, and they just need the right timing. That afternoon, while Emma napped, exhausted from the emotional morning, I met with Tyler again. He listened intently as I recounted everything. I knew families could be toxic, he said when I finished. But this is beyond dysfunctional. They're actively conspiring to separate you from your daughter, and threatening to use my financial situation against me, a situation they helped create. Tyler hesitated, then said, There's something else you should know. After finding those planted medications, I did some digging. Your father contacted our head of security 2 days before your arrival, claiming to be concerned about his daughter's unstable behavior and requesting special access to your room in case of emergency. He was setting this up before we even arrived, I whispered. Tyler nodded grimly. Kelly, I think it's time to stop playing defense. These people aren't going to back down. If what Emma overheard is true, they're preparing to file for emergency custody, probably as soon as this vacation ends. What can I do? They have money, connections, and apparently no moral boundaries. You fight fire with fire, Tyler said simply. You mentioned having evidence. Now it's time to use it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Everything Tyler had said made perfect sense. My family wasn't going to back down. They had been planning this for months, maybe years. The vacation was just the final piece of their strategy. Create documented instances of my instability and Emma's behavioral issues, then swoop in as the concerned grandparents. By morning, I had formulated a plan. Emma, how would you feel about changing rooms again? I asked over breakfast. Are Grandma and Grandpa going to find us again? No, sweetie. In fact, we're going to stay somewhere completely different. With Tyler's help, I checked us out of the Palm Breeze Resort and into a smaller hotel about a mile away. I left no forwarding information. Let my family wonder where we'd gone. What now, Mommy? Emma asked as we settled into our new room. Now, we get some help. My first call was to a family attorney named Rachel Dawson, whom I'd found through an online search. I explained my situation in detail, including the planted medications, the security footage, and the trust fund diversions. This is very serious, Rachel said. From what you've described, your parents are engaging in several potentially criminal activities: fraud, slander, filing false reports, and child endangerment. Do you have copies of all the evidence you've mentioned? Some of it. I have screenshots of emails and photos of the planted medications. The hotel security manager has the footage. Get everything in order, she advised. I'll prepare emergency motions to prevent your parents from filing for custody, but we need to move quickly. My next call was to the police department. I filed a report about the hotel room incident, providing them with Tyler's contact information to access the security footage. An 8-year-old child was deliberately locked in a hotel room without food or water for over 4 hours, I explained to the officer. The air conditioning was turned off in 90-degree heat, and she was suffering from dehydration when I found her. The officer was appropriately concerned and assured me they would investigate immediately. Next, I contacted Emma's school and spoke with the principal, explaining the situation and requesting that my parents and sister be removed from the approved pickup list. I also asked that any future communications from them be reported to me immediately. Of course, the principal assured me. Emma's safety is our priority. Finally, I made the hardest call of all to my father's business partner, Richard Morton. Kelly? This is unexpected, Richard said when he answered. I wish it were under better circumstances, I replied. Richard, I need to speak with you about some disturbing financial irregularities I've discovered involving my trust fund. There was a long pause. What trust fund are you referring to? The one my father established when I was 18, identical to Abigail's. According to his own emails, it should be worth over $300,000, but I've never received any distributions. Another long silence. Kelly, I think you and I need to meet in person when you return from vacation. Your father told me years ago that you had requested your trust be dissolved and the money used for your education. That never happened. I wasn't even aware the trust existed until recently. Richard's voice grew serious. This is very concerning. Thomas and I have been partners for 25 years, but if what you're saying is true, I have proof, I assured him. And there's more, much more. By the afternoon, things were moving quickly. Rachel had filed emergency motions with the family court to prevent any custody actions by my parents. The police had interviewed Tyler and viewed the security footage. Richard had initiated an audit of my trust accounts. Then my phone exploded with notifications. My parents and sister were texting and calling frantically, having discovered Emma and I had checked out of the resort. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I took Emma to the beach for the afternoon, watching her play in the surf without the shadow of criticism and comparison that had always hung over her when my family was present. Are we going to see Grandma and Grandpa again? She asked, as we built a sandcastle together. I chose my words carefully. Not for a while, sweetie. They haven't been very nice to us, and sometimes when people aren't nice, we need to take a break from them. She nodded seriously. Like when Jackson had to go to time, out for pushing me, but way longer. Something like that. That evening, Tyler called to inform me that the police had interviewed my parents and sister. They're claiming it was all a misunderstanding, he said. But the footage is pretty damning, especially with your father actively disabling the safety feature on the door. What happens now? The officers mentioned potential child endangerment charges. They've also been made aware of the prescription medications your parents planted. I thanked him for everything he'd done to help us. I know this might be crossing a line, Tyler said hesitantly, but would it be all right if I checked in with you after you return home? Just to make sure you and Emma are okay? The question caught me off guard, but not unpleasantly. I'd like that very much. Around 8 that evening, my phone rang with a call from an unknown number. It was Officer Bryant from the local police. Miss Wilson, I wanted to let you know that we've completed our initial investigation. Based on the security footage and other evidence, we're moving forward with child endangerment charges against your parents and sister. Relief washed over me. Thank you. What happens next? They've been formally notified of the charges. They'll need to appear for arraignment before returning to Georgia. Given the circumstances, a no-contact order has been issued, preventing them from approaching you or your daughter. After hanging up, I sat on the balcony of our new hotel room, watching the sunset over the ocean. For the first time in days, perhaps for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe freely. My phone rang again. It was Richard. Kelly, I've completed a preliminary review of the trust accounts, he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. What you suspected is true. Your father has been diverting funds from your trust to accounts for Abigail's children, as well as taking distributions himself under the guise of administrative fees. What can be done? I asked. Everything, Richard said firmly. As the secondary trustee, I have authority to freeze the accounts immediately, which I've done. I've also contacted our firm's legal department. What Thomas has done is not just unethical, it's illegal. Just as I was about to thank him, I received a text from my mother. How dare you involve the police and Richard? Your father is devastated. This is how you repay everything we've done for you? We're at the Landmark Hotel restaurant. Come alone. We need to discuss this like adults, before you destroy this family completely. I showed the message to Emma's therapist, whom I had managed to reach for an emergency phone session earlier. This is classic manipulation, she said. They're trying to reassert control by making you feel guilty and demanding a private meeting on their terms. I have no intention of meeting them, I assured her. Good. Based on what you've told me, maintaining firm boundaries is essential right now. The next morning, Rachel called with more news. The judge granted our emergency motion. Your parents cannot file for custody without a full hearing, which gives us time to present all our evidence. That afternoon, as Emma and I enjoyed our new hotel's pool, I received a call from the front desk of our previous resort. It was Tyler. "Your family is checking out," he informed me. "They've been served with the legal papers and the charges. They tried to claim you were mentally unstable and making false accusations, but the evidence was too strong." "How did they seem?" I couldn't help asking. "Shocked," Tyler replied. "I don't think they ever expected consequences." That evening, we saw on social media that my sister had canceled the remainder of their vacation and they were all flying back to Atlanta. I blocked their accounts and phone numbers, finally free from their toxic influence. As Emma slept peacefully that night, I made one final call to my best friend Laura back home. "I need a favor," I said after explaining everything. "Could you check on my apartment? My parents have a spare key for emergencies, and given everything that's happened." "I'm already on my way," Laura said without hesitation. An hour later, she called back. "Kelly, you were right to be concerned. Your apartment has been searched. Drawers are open, papers disturbed. And I found something strange in your medicine cabinet prescription bottles with your name on them that I know aren't yours. Take pictures of everything, and then get rid of those bottles," I instructed. "And change my locks immediately. I'll pay you back when I get home." With that final piece of the puzzle in place, I could finally rest. My family had been planning their move for months, perhaps years, undermining my career, diverting my trust fund, planting evidence, psychologically manipulating my daughter, and now attempting to stage my apartment to support their narrative of my instability. But they had underestimated me. For too long, I had accepted their treatment, making excuses and assuming some fault must lie with me. Now, seeing the lengths they would go to hurt my daughter, I had found a strength I never knew I possessed. As I drifted off to sleep, I realized that sometimes the most painful betrayals lead to the most powerful transformations. My family had tried to destroy me, but instead, they had forced me to become the fiercest version of myself, a mother who would stop at nothing to protect her child. 6 months have passed since that fateful Florida vacation, and our lives have transformed in ways I never could have imagined. Upon returning home, I discovered just how extensive my family's plot against me had been. With the help of Rachel, my attorney, we uncovered financial fraud going back years. My father had not only diverted my trust fund, but had also been reporting loans to me that I'd never received, creating a paper trail of financial dependence. The legal consequences were swift and severe. My father faced charges of financial fraud, child endangerment, and filing false reports. He ultimately accepted a plea deal that included financial restitution, community service, and mandatory counseling. His business partnership with Richard dissolved, and his reputation in our community crumbled as the truth emerged. My mother and sister faced lesser charges but significant social fallout. Abigail's law firm placed her on administrative leave, pending an ethics investigation, when they learned she had used her legal knowledge to help draft fraudulent custody documents. The trust fund restoration changed everything for Emma and me. With Rachel's help, I received the full amount that should have been mine, plus interest nearly $400,000. I used it to purchase a small but lovely 3-bedroom home in a neighborhood with excellent schools, providing Emma with stability and security she'd never known. "Is this really our house, Mommy?" she asked as we moved in, her eyes wide with wonder. "We don't have to ask permission to paint the walls or hang pictures? It's really ours, baby. Forever." Emma's recovery from years of psychological manipulation has been a journey. We found an excellent child therapist who specializes in family trauma, and gradually, Emma has begun to understand that her grandparents' and aunts' behavior reflected their own issues, not any failing on her part. "Dr. Samantha says it's not my job to make grown-ups be nice," she told me one day after a therapy session. "It's their job to be nice to kids no matter what." Dr. Samantha is absolutely right, I agreed, my heart swelling with pride at my daughter's resilience. As for me, the most surprising relationship to emerge from this ordeal has been with Tyler. After checking in regularly once we returned home, he eventually confessed that he'd been offered a position with a security firm in Atlanta, just 30 minutes from our new home. "I'd been considering the offer before I met you," he explained. "But now it feels like more than coincidence. Our first date was coffee at a small cafe near Emma's school. Our second was a picnic in the park with Emma, who declared him way nicer than Grandpa after he spent 2 hours helping her build an elaborate fairy house from sticks and leaves. Tyler understood family trauma in a way few others could, having grown up with emotionally abusive parents himself. His patience with both Emma's and my healing process has been nothing short of remarkable. 3 months after moving into our new home, I received an unexpected letter from my mother. Unlike her previous attempts at contact, alternately demanding and tearful voicemails, insisting I was overreacting, this letter seemed different. "I've been doing a lot of thinking in my court-mandated therapy," she wrote. "For the first time, I'm being forced to examine my treatment of you throughout your life. While I'm not asking for forgiveness yet, I don't deserve it. I want you to know that I'm beginning to understand the harm I've caused." I shared the letter with my own therapist, who cautioned me against rushing into any reconciliation. "Healing takes time," she reminded me, "and while people can change, you need to protect yourself and Emma first." I wrote a brief response acknowledging her letter but maintaining my boundaries. To my surprise, she respected them, sending only occasional updates about her therapy progress without demands or guilt trips. My father, too, eventually reached out after completing his community service hours at a children's advocacy center, an experience he described as life-changing. "Working with children who have been genuinely abused has forced me to confront what we did to Emma," he wrote. "There's no excuse. I'm ashamed, and I'm working to become someone who deserves to know his daughter and granddaughter someday." Abigail took longer to acknowledge any wrongdoing, but the experience of almost losing her law license finally broke through her defenses. After 6 months of family therapy with our parents, she called me. "I was the golden child," she said simply. "And I never questioned what that cost you, because it benefited me. I'm sorry, Kelly. Truly sorry." While these apologies didn't instantly heal decades of damage, they represented the first time my family had ever acknowledged their treatment of me. Real change, it seemed, was possible, though reconciliation would be a long, careful process with strong boundaries. Meanwhile, Emma blossomed in her new environment. Free from constant comparison to her cousins and the subtle undermining of her confidence, she excelled in school and discovered a passion for science. Her teacher recommended her for the gifted program, noting her exceptional problem-solving abilities. "She's always had these skills," her teacher told me during a conference. "She just needed the freedom to express them without fear of criticism." As for my professional life, with Richard's recommendation and the settlement money providing financial security, I returned to school to complete the business degree I'd abandoned when I became pregnant with Emma. I also started a support group for parents dealing with toxic family relationships, which quickly grew to 20 members. "You helped me find my voice," one mother told me during a meeting. "I never thought I could stand up to my in-laws until I heard your story." Today marks exactly 6 months since we left that hotel in Florida. Emma and I are celebrating with a special dinner, just the two of us, though Tyler will join us for dessert later. "Mom," Emma says as we enjoy our meal, "are you still sad about Grandma and Grandpa?" I consider her question carefully. I'm sad about what happened, and I'm sad that they missed out on truly knowing what an amazing person you are. But I'm not sad about standing up for us and making sure we're treated with respect. She nods thoughtfully. "Dr. Samantha says families are supposed to make you feel safe and loved. Our new family does that." "Our new family?" I ask, curious about her meaning. "You and me and Tyler and Laura and Dr. Samantha and all the nice people who help us now," she explains. "That's our real family." Her wisdom brings tears to my eyes. "You're absolutely right, Emma." Later, as Tyler joins us for ice cream sundaes, I watch my daughter laughing as he pretends her spoon is an airplane. The joy on her face is uninhibited, free from the shadow that had hung over her for so long. I've learned that family isn't defined by blood, but by love and respect. Sometimes the family we choose is healthier than the one we're born into. Sometimes the greatest act of love is establishing boundaries that protect our children from the same pain we experienced. Most importantly, I've learned that standing up to family betrayal doesn't make you disloyal, it makes you brave. It breaks generational patterns of toxicity and creates space for something healthier to grow. As we walk home under a starlit sky, Emma between us holding both our hands, Tyler catches my eye over her head and smiles. This is what family should feel like: safe, supportive, and kind. It may not be the family I was born into, but it's the one Emma and I deserve. Have you ever had to make difficult decisions to protect yourself or someone you love from family members who were causing harm? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes sharing our stories helps others find the courage to change their own situations. Please like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and triumph, and share it with anyone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the strength to create boundaries that protect your peace and happiness.